and ready for your insight into this globe-trotting adventure. It's time for Adam to lose again. You guys excited? I sure am.
Hey, you gave us lots, and thanks for your thoughts. Now it's time to see which of you was smarter than the average YouTube commenter. Not a high bar to set, I know, but still.
One could say this episode was magnificent. Like King Magnifico. Yeah. Overall, it feels like they both could probably beat Bowser. Yogi would be scared at first, but eventually via squash and stretch physics, there's not much on the Mario end to take him down. But I do believe Peacemaker will have the greater odds between the two. As Aqua said before, it will take trial and error, but his ability to adapt to high-stakes circumstances and huge threats, like Starro, Blue Beetle, Sinestro Core, etc., will get him through most of, if not all of Bowser's forces. It wasn't really a topic with the scenario, but it seems Yogi would rely way more on his friends helping him when only Yogi and Peacemaker were brought to the Mario world. Not to say that they couldn't get help if that's being used, but if they are on their own in any capacity across the journey, Gun is going to have a way easier time by himself going in. Especially with the arsenal mentioned before, with giant mechs and one-shotting helmets. As I said, Yogi will probably be able to defeat Bowser. But John is just going to have the best chance of doing it quicker and better. Where's Lincoln versus Corrin? Oh, Hippo. I'm so sorry, young one. Lincoln Loud versus Corrin is dead. It's not happening. But at least you're correct! Peacemaker and Yogi were only brought to the Mario world, so why did we start arguing about allies?
I admit I didn't really address it in the best way, but I literally said in part 1 it wasn't a point I wanted to rely on too much. I was just bringing it up before anyone else could and saying if we wanted to go there, Yogi's gotten beat easily. And then we said it was just them that were isekai'd, but I mean, it's not like a buddy getting transported with them is any more outlandish than most of the other stuff we brought up, like flying arcs and giant robots. None of that was meant to say the Yogi couldn't do it on his own. They're both pretty adaptable. Yogi's even adjusted to alien societies before. The difference is, Peacemaker's going to have to do more adapting in the first place compared to Yogi's cartoony antics, having already been on similar cartoony adventures.
While I'd agree that having to adapt to a more cartoonish world for a more grizzled character takes time, I still believe Peacemaker is anything but. He is for sure one of the most wacky DC street tiers. Even if he wasn't, like Hippo mentions, he has adapted to situations before, so it's not a major disadvantage, if at all. Plus, I'd argue being not stupid would take a longer time for Yogi.
You say that, but I'm not the one who argued that stopping to eat power-ups along the way would be detrimental within the Mario world. Or that Kazuya would beat Wesker. Sure, Yogi may need to fall back on it in more general scenarios than Smith would, but that would help him out in the long run compared to just beelining to Bowser's and ending up in a situation where he'll wish he didn't pass up that strange bouncing star.
Hey, Babu, I'm gonna go eat all these goated power-ups instead of focusing on the mission at hand. I've said this before. I don't think Smith is going to suffer at all in a physical confrontation with Bowser. Again, his sheer versatility in the scenario is way better than Yogi, who would have to rely on those power-ups.
Again, tell me what's the most consistent way to beat Bowser in your typical Mario game, because it sure isn't martial arts or a hand cannon. Not that these are hurting his chances, but it feels like a lot of people are sleeping on Yogi's. He may not be a super soldier or a strategist, but if he can adjust to getting kidnapped by aliens and outwit them to stop a full-scale invasion of Earth, then I think it'd be fair to say he's pretty adaptable as well. Perhaps even more so in this case, since he'll be more likely to take advantage of his sillier surroundings.
I don't have much else to add here. Maybe your first comment will be brilliantly profound.
Hey, that rhymes with brilliantly bad. Alright, Multiverse Clash 33,000, let's see what you got. This is a very clear cut in my opinion anyways. While Peacemaker possesses significant fighting experience and powerful weapons, he's essentially an above-average human who will struggle in the unique environment of the Mario universe. Yogi Bear, despite lacking combat prowess, has access to Toon Force, making him highly adaptable. His friendly and pleasant nature would likely earn the support of Mario's friends, like Toad and Yoshi, who could assist him on his quest. In contrast, Peacemaker's intense and violent demeanor might alienate potential allies, leading him to underestimate the Mushroom Kingdom's dangers and possibly go solo, which increases his risk of failure. Despite his combat prowess, Peacemaker might struggle with the unique challenges of the Mario universe. He could easily underestimate the deceptively dangerous enemies like Boos or have his weapons rendered useless by Magic Koopas. Without his gear, even if he reached Bowser, he would likely be defeated very quickly. Yogi's smarter than average bear intelligence would allow him to avoid direct confrontations, using stealth and creativity to navigate Bowser's castle. With the potential help of Mario's allies, Yogi could leverage his cunning to rescue Princess Peach, proving that his unconventional methods and ability to rally support make him even better suited for the task than Peacemaker. Well said. I chose this comment because it brings up a point I actually didn't think of. Mario often makes some crucial allies on his adventures just by virtue of him being a swell guy. willing to help out people no matter who they are. I could see Yogi being just as approachable since he's often lent a helping hand, paw, you get it, to strangers before. Meanwhile, Peacemaker mostly works with others out of obligation, if anything, and in the Suicide Squad isekai, everyone he came across viewed him as either a jerk or a psychopath. Makes it kinda hard to imagine Toad wanting to help him out, you know?
Smith still has allies that like him, as I mentioned in part 1. Sure, the Suicide Squad thought he was a bit of an asshole, but those are full of, guess what? Supervillains! I don't think it's fair to take their word, especially when he's worked just as well with them in comic runs or as allies in the Peacemaker show. Even without allies, I think Peacemaker is generally a more competent person than Yogi, who I still see getting very easily distracted.
Well, forgive me for leveraging an argument against me from the last comment, but if it's iffy for them to fall back on any of their old friends in this scenario, then there's no guarantee Cena's gonna have anyone to vouch for him here. Sure, he's not as bad as your Boomerangs or Killer Crocs, but these guys are also way worse. Of course they'll be able to put up with him. At least Yogi's attitude shouldn't make it actively harder for him to piss off the wrong crowd that has nothing to do with the Koopas.
I'm saying that if we for some reason bring in allies, Peacemakers are leagues better than Yogi's usual crew. It's still very iffy to fall back on allies, but if we absolutely have to, Peacemaker has Yogi beat. Also, I wouldn't say Smith is outright disturbing or annoying to be around. He's just a guy with a job to do.
Oh yeah, he has another guy with a gun and an eagle. I guess that has my reality warping genie and time traveling hippopotamus beat. What's a guy to do? Well, regardless, we've said plenty of times now that we probably shouldn't fall back on the ally thing too much, so hopefully your next comment moves away from that, Miss Studios.
Carson Smith says, "Alright, this is surprisingly more debatable than I thought it would be, but I have to give it to the famed wrestler John Cena. First off, Peacemaker is going to have a far easier time dealing with the more basic enemies of the Mario world. Goombas and Koopas aren't going to be able to do much against bullets when they struggle to defeat a normal Italian, and John has bullets right off the bat and in spades. Yes, Yogi could use the power-ups to even the playing field, but he would have to be A, smart enough to hit the question box to get them, and B, not run away from the first batch of enemies he sees in fear. Peacemaker would also be much more efficient in getting to the princess. He would go straight for the princess, taking out as many of Bowser's enemies as he could. Yogi is known for setting up elaborate schemes and traps to get a picnic basket, so when going against hordes of enemies, I bet he'd try and do the same, which would waste a lot of time. Next, while Yogi has the more cartoony physics to match, Peacemaker is no slouch when it comes to dealing with stronger beings. Not only could he use his giant mech to instantly mow through entire levels and even take on things like Giant Bowser, but he could also use his various helmets to great effect as well. He has shields to protect him, sonic booms to splatter most enemies, and a shrink helmet. I do believe they used something similar on Bowser in the movie, and that worked. So there's no reason John couldn't do the same. Yogi may be a bit more used to things like magic, but what's Gambit going to do against being splattered by a sonic boom? Or the fuck laser? And John lives in the DC universe, so I bet he'd have a much better understanding of Mario's generally more basic magic. Yogi's biggest advantage is that he has much higher cartoonish durability, but seeing as Peacemaker would be killing a good majority of his foes almost instantly with either bullets, sonic booms, lasers, or a mech, it isn't that useful. Even if some things do get a hit on John, he has the shield helmet to protect himself, and Human Torpedo for a quick escape if need be. Another one of Yogi's win cons is that Bowser would take Peach far away, but I don't get how that benefits Yogi here. You have a guy with a jet versus a bear with much bulkier aircraft. Only way Yogi holds the advantage is if Bowser goes off planet, but he rarely does. Even then, Yogi may just give up on such a difficult journey. The Mushroom Kingdom has tons of food on its own, and there's no guarantee he would even be told about the cake. Meanwhile, when John has a goal, he'll see it through. Add in John's better allies and the fact he's smarter. Sorry, Adam, but you're going 0 to 4, bud.
Smart enough to hit the question blocks? You mean literally the most basic action in any Mario game? Both of them could likely just figure it out by accident. It's not like they're playing Elden Ring here. So that's probably how Peacemaker will be approaching things. I still don't agree that his methods are necessarily better here. You can pick him up as a super strategist, but 9 times out of 10 he's just going in guns blazing, whether or not it works out for him. And I already went into how Yogi's cowardice isn't consistent, and even still, how making a retreat or grab the princess and go isn't necessarily the worst plan comparatively.
Soul's game on GGM does sound kind of fire, though. Anyway, Peacemaker only goes in guns blazing? Where the fuck do you keep getting that from? There are plenty of examples both within the show and the comics of Smith not immediately resorting to guns unless he absolutely has to. Even if that was the case, shooting up several different minions is going to be very useful when it comes to getting to the goal quicker. The less Hammer Bros and spikes I have to deal with, the better.
Alright, that I can agree with. More so than Chris being a better fighter by default, automatically meaning he takes this at least. Those helmet powers will come in handy, sure, but it's not like they're anything too foreign to the Mario world. And those plus his skills are only going to get him so far when he runs out of options or underestimates Bowser's forces. I mean, the dude still got his ass kicked by a gorilla. Good luck trying to get Donkey Kong on your side.
Sure, he struggled with the gorilla, but that was when he was caught off guard without most of his gear. And I think there's a pretty big difference between Donkey Kong, who is genuinely just a nice guy, and an angry gorilla flailing about trying to kill everybody.
I don't know about that. We've seen him go for the jugular before.
And well, my dad thinks I'm a joke, too.
Yeah, well, your dad's right!
But in all seriousness, Mario was able to get by in that fight thanks to quick thinking and luck being on his side, which is basically Yogi's whole MO. Even if he doesn't have to resort to, let's say, a tactical retreat, it just goes to show he'll be less likely to get in over his head.
Now we're arguing about them fighting Donkey Kong. Where did that come from? The point being, Peacemaker is unlikely to actually anger anyone near him. I don't think Yogi would either, so it's not necessarily a negative for either. Maybe this next comment can shed some light we haven't seen yet.
Okay, I'm realizing I picked two longer comments, so bear with me here. Compared to Peacemaker, Yogi is a lot more cowardly, but you know who else is cowardly yet capable of doing good things? Luigi. Dude is scared of ghosts, but he has the backing of Toon Force and stuff to fall back on. Parentheses, Luigi's Mansion, Olympic Games. Yogi can persevere, he might be a scaredy bear, but he's a carry bear. Aww. Guns aren't new in Mario, parentheses, Rabbids, so Peacemaker is actually in a big disadvantage. Sure, guns lethal, but fodder like Goombas can fight against machines and foes that make Bowser struggle. Parentheses, the green robots in Bowser's Inside Story. They're tough! Cartoony shenanigans will be the more realistic character, as Yogi's the only one who can afford to gaha it up in the first place, okay? Peacemaker makes a single mistake, and it's peace out. Plus, less actual bullets. Shrink Bowser, while it could work, Kamek can just nope that, and it's only confined to one helmet. Which Peacemaker might not have even gotten if he doesn't know ahead of time. Power-ups, every power-up Peacemaker doesn't take is something the enemy can use. Whereas Yogi won't have to even worry, munching them all down. Insta-deaths, lava and shit won't be much of a hindrance given his Toon Force, and can't say the same for Comic Boy. And time travel, while kinda countered by Bowser being able to just do it too, parentheses Yoshi's New Island, well, nothing's stopping Yogi from preventing Mario from being washed away, or wherever he went. Yeah, where did he go, actually? We never figured that out. He could be chilling with Luigi, with his phone turned off for a single day, or something. Not completely unbearable. Ha 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 ha. Good one, studio. The last time Yogi went against a competent threat alone, this is what happened to him. That Imgur link didn't work for me, so I know what he's talking about. I'll put it on screen. Issue is, competent threat is what Bowser's army ain't. Sure, they're deadly, but aside from several of them, like Kamek or the Koopalings, they aren't smarter than the average bear, and... Peacemaker will be making it harder on himself to pick through them all. Skipping to the end is actually infamous for speedruns, in general when Peach is in need of saving. John is the linear progression, Yogi is the terminal montage progression. And yes, I know some games don't let you skip or speedrun, okay, sure, but they usually don't make you rescue Peach. Parentheses, Super Mario 3D World, Green Star Cat, Bowser Fury, needing all the cat bells rescue, blah blah. Read the fine print if all you want, whether it's land on space, but there's no clause saying speedrun focusing isn't allowed. You're killing me with these jokes. Plus, Yogi's not dumb. He got married to Boo Boo for the tax benefits, parentheses Jellystone. While trying to get the princess and run off could backfire given Bowser has it insured to keep Peach safe and locked away, parentheses Paper Jam, and has used minions to pose as her, parentheses Kamek and New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Still a fatal flaw. Skipping to the end and seeing the comical, self-defeating traps Bowser employs, sure, Yogi might be worse in a fight, but one word of a cake or sweets from any Toad on how, oh, Mario, when you return and save Peach, he'll give you the biggest case, and he'll go Mono Kuma against the Koopa King. At least then an Alpha Ursa can be found. Alright. Well, thank you, studio.
You unfaithful weasel! Commit to the Peacemaker win! Comparing Yogi and Luigi is fucking crazy. Luigi has a history of generally being a competent guy. Outside of the Mansion series, he's almost in every mainline Mario game alongside the adventure. He's not really scared of the typical Mario enemies. Compared to Yogi, that's a lot different. You say Kamek could just undo anything Peacemaker does with his helmet, but so? He could just as easily shoot Kamek, and he's just done for. We're allowing them to speedrun the scenario. That's pretty much the goal. Who could get to Peach the fastest and save her? Yogi getting married to Baboo for tax purposes somehow correlates to genuine strategy in a fight? How? That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, there have been instances where Bowser grew giant just out of the blue, so not like Kamek would be totally necessary to counter that. I think he's right that it's a big mistake to underestimate the Koopa troops, and Yogi's the only one here who could actually afford mistakes like that in the first place, and would be more cautious about it to boot. Even if he has to go through a lot more trial and error, Yogi's persevered against seemingly unwinnable odds before. While Peacemaker would likely be more focused, I don't think the fastest route leads to the safest route, especially when you're a lot squishier in this setting.
Bowser growing giant would be a problem if he had the chance to begin with. Smith would just shoot him dead there and then. Plus, he could always just use the shrinkage helmet. Without Kamek to heal him, he's just kinda done for. Even if he did, Jordan can always just race to the end of the level and epically send Bowser flying into the lava below. If we're gonna give that leeway to Yogi, we should also do that for Smith.
I'll give leeway there once we give leeway to Yogi's smarter than average bear brain. Again, I know Chris is strategist supreme, but let's not pretend that's necessary to pull off the epic win against Bowser. I mean, there's nothing to suggest Mario and Luigi have much more than just average intelligence. Yogi could for sure come up with a plan to get Peach out of there with minimal risks to his life, especially since he's already shown to pull this off against bad guys on a greater scale than Ranger Smith. Well, sorry about the betrayal, Aqua, but at least you got one more comment.
Krimgon says, going through both arguments, I have to side with Peacemaker. One of the first points brought up for Yogi winning is how he has better help. First of all, there is nothing in this scenario suggesting that Yogi and Peacemaker have access to their allies, so it's iffy if Yogi gets them in the first place. Also, Peacemaker has these giant robots called Peace Hammers that he used to fight the Doom Patrol, which could be really useful help, not gonna lie. Peacemaker also has enough experience with battling the strange beings, I'm assuming that's what you're saying, to the Mario universe. Peacemaker has fought aliens with just normal guns, but isekai'd into the fantasy world. Fought ninjas with elemental powers, if you want to count Mortal Kombat. Yeah, that's fair. Fought shark humanoids similar to King Shark, and fought the Swamp Thing. These should make it so that Peacemaker won't be completely caught off guard by Bowser's minions. Also, Peacemaker fought all of these guys, while Yogi didn't even fight half of the wacky individuals Adam brought up. Peacemaker also just has way better gear. Peacemaker's helmet also allows him to fly, making it even easier to make it past any obstacles. Peacemaker's jetpack also does this as well. And that's not all, as Peacemaker has the Peace Jet, a jet that he can summon with his helmet that he can also pilot remotely and put into autopilot. Also, Peacemaker has Bastions? Huh? With biological bioagents imbued in them, for opponents who can't die. Said Bastion, what? Is it batons? Are these batons? Okay, whatever. Even weakening Swamp Thing. They should be able to allow Peacemaker to keep up with the more powerful trump cards Bowser has, and maybe even outright defeat them. Also, Adam failed to bring up any counter-arguments Bowser and his minions have towards Peacemaker's size changer. We've seen in some media, like the Mario movie, that shrinking down Bowser and his minions does incapacitate them for a while. While Bowser could just grow big to counter that, I don't recall any of Bowser's armies having any actual counters to being shrunken. Also, it makes sense that both Yogi and Peacemaker should be given access to Mario power-ups, and I think Peacemaker would benefit the most from that. Peacemaker is undoubtedly the most skilled of the two, so he'd probably be the first to figure out and master the abilities the power-ups would offer. That's a tongue twister. The power-ups would also make it so that Peacemaker wouldn't be dragged down by just being a normal guy in this scenario. The 1-ups would especially be useful, as they'll make it so Peacemaker won't be easily killed during the scenario. He can just come back, you know? I mean, yeah, but he still has the problem of running them out. Both of them do. They can easily run out of one. Okay, whatever. One point for Peacemaker that I want to bring up is how he doesn't need to face Bowser and his minions to win. Peacemaker has shown the capacity to utilize stealth to some extent, so nothing is stopping him from attempting to just sneak through Bowser's defenses and run off with Peach. The scenario is who can rescue Peach first, and not who can defeat Bowser. After all, his X-ray vision, yes, his helmet does that as well, should allow him to easily see the defenses Bowser has in his castle and find quick and easy ways around them. Peacemaker should also be agile enough to easily avoid the obstacles in Bowser's castle, and his jetpack and helmet could also allow him to just fly straight towards Peach. And assuming one of Bowser's enemies runs into Peacemaker, he could just knock them out with his dart gun or shrink them until they are easily able to be taken care of. Peacemaker could also use his robot army to distract Bowser and his army by having them pull up outside the castle, making it even easier for Peacemaker to sneak in and grab Peach. And this wouldn't be too far-fetched, as Peacemaker has shown instances of being strategic when fighting opponents before. When fighting the Doom Patrol, Peacemaker manipulated the entire government, turning them against the Doom Patrol. All that so he could have a better chance. If Peacemaker was able to do that, I think he could figure out that simply sneaking into Bowser's castle and swiping Peach would be the easiest solution. Peacemaker is also able to have some awareness of when he's outmatched, being the reason they made special batons. Okay, so it was batons. There we go. To contend with Swamp Thing. So I doubt he'd be as dumb as to fistfight Bowser without any caution.
I'll admit that I underestimated all the wacky adventures Peacemaker's gotten himself into, but again, these instances are pretty few and further between than him just taking on his fellow street tiers. Fighting Swamp Thing sounds pretty impressive until you realize he didn't do shit to him and just walked away at the end. And he was a lot busier fighting Bloodsport in the Starro example. It was Harley and the girl that controlled rats who did all the heavy lifting there.
Sure, he did need some help in some examples. The key thing here is that he was still capable of doing some of it on his own. As this comment even provides, he once convinced the entire government on his side to defeat the Doom Patrol. He was even isekai'd before, so stuff like this isn't entirely new to him.
Sure, but again, most of his time in that world was just him taking out low-level monsters and torturing some poor guy. Doesn't seem like he even used any of his fancy helmet powers you guys keep hyping up, so who's to say he'd think to use it here either? Again, Yogi's wit is being slacked on here. He was able to expose Mayor R. Brown for his crimes against nature. Where was Peacemaker and all that, huh?
He's too busy fighting cocaine-empowered supervillains to be focusing on Mayor Brown. You know, being an actual hero. Sure, maybe Peacemaker doesn't use all of his helmets in every single fight, but those are in singular fights, not big grand adventures like this. So this would differ, and I could see him bringing his stuff along.
The difference here is that Yogi actually has experience on grand adventures, so if anyone's going to think to use everything he's got at his disposal, it's gonna be the bear. This dude literally saved Easter while all the other cartoon heroes were tackling Christmas. Maybe Koopa should set his sight there again before my next whoops. Oh boy, Ducko's comment. Here we go. In this conflict between Edward Blake and Art Carney, I can draw a few parallels. One is that we have a more headstrong fellow in red. The other is slightly cowardly, reluctant one wearing green. So it's not like either approach can't do anything in a Mario game. I don't think that really crossed either of our minds. Both are not the biggest geniuses in either universe, but I'm going to point out something that might not win me points with anyone, but I'll do it anyway. Bowser is a fun character, but he's a fucking dumbass too. That bitch-ass Bowser. He tries the same plot over and over again, that never works. He leaves... I'm giving up on that voice. He leaves things to help the people trying to stop him strewn throughout every level. He either fights in rooms or areas that have an easy way to kill him, or fights in a way where he basically kills himself. Adam, the Princess Peach, and General Mario Stan even pointed that out. There was a fight where all you have to do is run from Bowser for a bit. The further pull from a probably scrapped GGM with John McClane versus Bowser. So many of the fights against Bowser revolve around some way. Bowser is shooting himself in the foot, dodging him, and either letting him destroy the floor underneath him, getting behind him, blah blah blah. But he's an epically OP wizard who can just turn them into bricks. Alright, I had the... one more voice than me. Name a single time in any Mario game where any of Bowser's boss fights just to turn Mario and Luigi into bricks and they just lose. The people who it would most benefit him to do this to, so that his plans could go off without a hitch, you can't. Shoot them with the dehydration gun. Again, Bowser is a dumbass. Okay, tell us how you really feel, Ducko. That all said, again, there is something to either approach Peacemaker or Yogi could take. Peacemaker seems more likely to kill Bowser in the sense that Yogi probably wouldn't shoot Bowser in the head, whether that works or not. Yogi is more likely to just sneak around Bowser, get Peach out and leave, like he does with the picnic basket. And it'll probably get by Bowser because, well, do I need to say it again? It still probably beats Ganon and Eggman, though. Well, we will find out soon enough. But most relevant to Yogi specifically, he runs on sort of similar cartoon logic, so it's not beyond the point of consideration. If we're trying to speedrun this though, Peacemaker might just be wasting time with the direct approach, while Yogi might just get things done quicker by trying to avoid everything entirely. Just because a scenario is from a video game doesn't mean they have to go through every level, do they? Find Bowser's castle, go there in the space arc that Yogi had, or something similar, even just a plane really, then get Peach and then leave. Hell, it might even become a team-up if the fighting is a concern. Peacemaker fights Bowser, Yogi gets Peach, but since the latter is the real goal, I give it to Yogi. I love Mario and have been since I was a kid, even if this comment seems disparaging. I'm sorry, folks. You know what? You are not forgiven, Ducko. Lay on them, Aqua.
What is it with the Bowser hate in this episode? Y'all have issues. That man is a family man and a sacred treasure. Oh, Ducko, you. I'd strangle you through this screen if I could. Okay, calm me down now. Sure, Smith is more likely to kill his opponents. But guess what? When they're dead, they're dead. They won't come back to bother or chase him. Unlike Yogi. If Yogi runs away, what's stopping these people from chasing after him and making his run even slower? You can't run away from all of your problems.
With all due respect, Ducko, next time you take my side on one of these, make it a bit more obvious that you are until the final paragraph. Just a simple request. But anyway, to address the main course of this meaty comment, I do agree Bowser isn't the brightest baddie in all fiction or anything, but that kind of goes both ways here. What matters more is that he still has a lot of resources to go through. I mean, a lot of Bowser's minions seem to die when Mario crushes them, so either he can revive them, or that's a lot of Goombas to blast his way through.
Yeah, Bowser isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but he's an all-star all the same. He's not going to be easily defeated by either party, but regardless, he still has to be defeated for Peach to actually get away. If Yogi just runs away from Bowser, he's going to be easily chased down by Bowser and even more of his army. Again, you can't run away from all of your problems.
And why not? It seems to have worked out for Yogi more often than not. And with stats not a factor here, Bowser's not exactly the most athletic guy to try and outrun. Just ignore all those times he totally was. It's like Studio said earlier, cowardice doesn't equate to incapability in this series. I still believe Yogi's approach to picking his fights will be better in the long run. Although I feel like we're kind of just repeating ourselves at this point, so let's say we wrap this up into a nice picnic basket.
So, Adam, after all this time, do you admit defeat to pro wrestler John Cena? I mean, a fourth loss can't be that bad.
No!
Man, just keep rubbing it in, everyone.
Fuck. Well, I tried my best, Peacemaker fans, but I have to concede and give it to the bear.
Yeah, I know. I'm the resident loser. Huh? You're serious?
But don't be mistaken, this was a lot closer than we originally thought it was going to turn out to be.
Yeah, out of all the matchups and scenarios we've had on this show, I was not expecting this one to be up there with our back and forth. Chris definitely had a lot of stuff going for him here, I'll admit to that. Like, obviously being the better fighter, and more of an action anti-hero. Coming from superhero comics will definitely help with that.
The main thing that kept tripping me up in this debate was always the fact that Yogi's more toony nature would allow for him to make more mistakes and not die from things that would absolutely kill Peacemaker. Lava, spikes, being crushed, it's all stuff Yogi has seen before or could likely survive, while Smith is just kind of a normal guy. A super strong guy to be fair, but not cartoon levels.
Ironically, one of the most common arguments against Yogi, him being a big scaredy cat and running away, actually worked out more in my favor here. Peacemaker trying to fight head-on is commendable, but combined with what Aqua said about his much lower survivability here, it'll likely just lower it even further. I mean, not even Mario himself can take Bowser head-on most of the time. Meanwhile, some of the most iconic boss fights against him just involve running away and hitting a conveniently placed switch or button at the end, something that Yogi will naturally be more prone to do.
As much as I wanted to gas up Peacemaker's intelligence, he's anything but that. He constantly hangs out with Vigilante, who is really stupid, acts like a 5-year-old when people make him mad, making raspberries in their face, and generally just being kind of a goofball. Yogi isn't a super genius, but he isn't that dumb as I made him out to be.
Wow, so I guess that's that then. I got my first double GM win since ever. So this is what it feels like. Well, Miss Aqua Studios, you debated well, and it's been an honor getting to vouch for Mr. Hanna-Barbera himself. Well, behind Scooby, anyway.
In that same retrospect, this would be my first loss. But honestly, I'm not that bummed about it. I got to talk about Peacemaker, a show and character that is really charming and fun, and got to explore more Yogi Bear media for this debate, even if I don't get to debate in favor of Princess Peach in the future. Yeah, that's why we wanted to do this. Whoever wins is going to debate for her in the future, so look out for that, I guess. But alas, let's see how this odyssey comes to a close.
The two champions fought their way through the kingdom, stomping plenty of Goombas, Koopas, and more on their way to the princess. As Yogi Bear stepped up to the bridge to face Bowser, he was prepared for a challenging fight. Bowser roared at the bear dressed in green, before turning in complete confusion. "Wait a minute, you're not Mario," he said. Yogi replied by cheekily running away, grabbing the princess and booking it out of the castle, making sure to hit a switch that plunged Bowser into the lava below. Back at the princess's castle, Peach thanked her newfound hero, only for Yogi to blow up in her face. "Where's the cake?" Yay! Back with Peacemaker, Smith found himself in an entirely new land, surrounded by pyramids and more unique structures in comparisons to the ones in the Mushroom Kingdom. An orange-clad princess stepped out to greet him. Peacemaker was confused. It had seemed he traveled to the wrong kingdom entirely, but Smith could care less. After all, any place needs peace.
peaches, 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 peaches. Ah!